Podcast number 4. We're going to be going over Mel Kiper's 4.0 mock draft. And let me tell you, it gets interesting. Uh, you're going to see that an offensive lineman, particularly, in my opinion, the number 3 prospect in the draft, doesn't get selected until, I'm not going to spoil it, but it's not in the top 10. Let's just leave it at that. So, some of these picks, if you've seen my other couple podcasts, they're getting better. But if you've seen my other ones, we went through a mock draft that I came up with. But so some of the picks are going to be the same that I predicted. But some of these are severely different as it gets to 11 and beyond. It gets interesting. Mel Kiper's draft includes trades, so you'll see a couple of those. I see one main one right off the bat, but we'll get right into it. So, number 1 is Trevor Lawrence. I mean, the Jaguars aren't going to pass on Trevor Lawrence. He is probably the best QB prospect since Andrew Luck, comparing to also Stanford QB John Elway. But the Clemson quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, he's got everything. He's 6'6", good weight. Pretty sure he's above 100, not 120, 220 pounds. He's really got no flaws. I think he's obviously the safest pick in the draft, and it's not even close. But moving on to number 2, the Jets. They got everything locked in. It's going to be Zach Wilson from BYU. I mean, you see at his pro day, he was just ripping and gripping that thing, literally fading away, just sending it 60 yards down the field. His arm talent is insane. I really think Zach Wilson's ceiling could be top 3 in this draft with Kyle Pitts and Trevor Lawrence. But, yeah, Zach Wilson, he's got all the tools to be successful, and I know these quarterbacks that have supposedly one-year wonders that come out of nowhere, like Zach Wilson, Mac Jones this year. I really do think the quarterback from BYU, Zach Wilson, really has tremendous upside, especially with that arm talent. You could definitely see him turn into a Josh Allen level slinger pretty easily. I could see if he gets the talent around him, as the Jets also need to draft some skill positions at pick 23. But number 3 gets interesting. So my other mock draft, I basically chose who in my other mock draft, I basically selected who I would draft if I were that team in their position. Now, with the 49ers, I'm going to be honest, not many people out there think that Mac Jones should be going to the 49ers at number 3. But all of the signs point towards Mac Jones teaming up with Kyle Shanahan. I mean, Kyle Shanahan, we know it. He's one of the best offensive-minded people in the game. Matt Ryan's MVP season was with Kyle Shanahan before Kirk Cousins got that big contract from the Vikings, even though I don't like that. Yeah, he develops quarterbacks really well. You saw it with Jimmy Garoppolo. They always seem to win when healthy. He definitely needs a quarterback to come in right away, because I really do think the 49ers are still in that window of Super Bowl contending. They have a lot of talent on the team. They were injured last year. I think getting that quarterback of the future is a must-need. And I think Mac Jones, even though a lot of people don't think this is the right pick, you could definitely pick Trey Lance or Justin Fields. This is the predicted pick as what's it called? The 49ers traded up to get this pick before Justin Fields' pro day. So I think that says a lot. So number 4, you got to take BPA, best player available, Kyle Pitts. On Mel Kiper's 4.0 mock draft, he has Kyle Pitts. I think this is a great pick. I could easily I see him as either being the second or third best draft prospect in the whole draft. I mean, he's getting compared to Calvin Johnson. He's got a 6'6" frame, ran a 4.4, mid 4.4s. He's got an 83-inch wingspan. I mean, he jumps out of his shoes. He's a literal mismatch for any person that's really going to cover him in the NFL. And I think having a person on your team like Kyle Pitts to go with Calvin Ridley or Julio Jones would really be something special. I do think they should consider quarterback right here, as you don't know when you're going to get the fourth overall pick again, and picking someone up with, according to Mel Kiper's draft or mock draft, you still got, you still got Trey Lance on the board from NDSU. You still got Justin Fields on the board from Ohio State. So I think you got to consider that, because you never know where you can have the number 4 pick or even close to it again, as I think their team is really young and talented, especially with Calvin Ridley coming out of his shell this last season. But number 5, this is interesting. See, this is where you would think the best prospect for an offensive lineman in the past like 20 years would go, in Penei Sewell from Oregon. But no, Mel Kiper has the Bengals taking Jamar Chase from LSU. I mean, teaming up with Joe Burrow again, they basically already have chemistry. I mean, really solidifying his speed. He ran a 4.38 at his pro day for LSU. He's the clear-cut number 1 receiver in the draft, to be honest. I think really them pairing up again. I mean, you saw it in college. Burrow had 5,600 yards. I mean, Jamar Chase had 20 touchdowns. He's had this whole year to get ready for the draft. I think having an offensive weapon like Jamar Chase with Burrow is definitely exciting. But I would say you need offensive line in this position. You need the best tackle and tackle prospect probably since Anthony Munoz, who's also a Bengal. I mean, you saw it in the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes, you need tackles. You need offensive line. It doesn't matter how many skill positions you got. If you got the best tight end, if you got a top 3 receiver in Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, you saw it. They had all those weapons. Couldn't get it done because he didn't have protection. I think Penei Sewell would be the right pick. But it would be fun to see Jamar Chase with Joe Burrow, which is what Mel Kiper has going here. Number 6, the Dolphins, who probably expected Jamar Chase to be there, end up taking, or Mel Kiper has them taking Devonta Smith, Heisman Trophy winner. I could see Waddle going here. I see Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle going back and forth on mock drafts of who's going to go first or not. But clear cut, probably in my opinion, the best route runner in the class is Devonta Smith. They need some playmakers. They just signed Will Fuller in free agency. Devonta Parker, who's also Devonta, or Devontae Parker, didn't really pan out as being that wide receiver one. So bring in, obviously, Will Fuller, as I just mentioned, and drafting another clear number 1 receiver, in my opinion, in Devonta Smith really helps Tua as they played together. I really think that offense is going to be clicking this year. They have a really young team, and then they could definitely look to draft a running back later in the draft. So I think Devonta Smith is a great pick here. Now, number 7 would be the Dolphins pick, or not the Dolphins, the Jets. No, not the Jets, the Lions. Jeez, I'm looking right at it. The Lions pick, and I have them taking, or Mel Kiper has them taking Jalen Waddle, who I think could either be prospect number 2 or number 3 for wide receiver. I mean, he's got 4.2 speed. I don't know if he's ran it yet, but he's got 4.2 speed. He's just fast, man. He's really electric. He's a really good deep threat, and he can really spread the field to get other teammates open. And his run after catch ability, instant He can instantly go into the punt return game or the kick return game. So I think Jalen Waddle's a great pick here. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Even though even though the Panthers just had Sam Darnold, or just got Sam Darnold with a 2, a 4, and a 6, I'm pretty sure. They do draft Trey Lance. I'll be right back. There's some really bad noise, but just hold that thought. Trey Lance, that's really interesting. Okay, I'm back. So, where were we? The Trey Lance pick. Oh yeah, Mel Kiper has Trey Lance going to the Panthers. Now this is really interesting, as the Panthers just traded for Sam Darnold, as I previously mentioned. I don't know. I don't really see this happening, but Mel Kiper has obviously been doing this longer than most people in the world, to be honest. But Trey Lance, I think he's got tremendous upside. If they are going to take a QB here, I mean, 28, what did he have? 28 throwing touchdowns, or total touchdowns in 1 year and 0 picks. I mean, that's just unbelievable. Now, you got to consider competition, obviously. He did have a really good left tackle. But, I mean, he's probably going to, I don't know what his 40 is, but he'll probably run, he's probably in the range of 4.4, 4.5, if I were to guess. I would like to see the Panthers grab maybe best player available in this position. Maybe grab Micah Parsons. Maybe grab a Patrick Surtain, a J.C. Horn. Heck, even look at offensive line essentially. But I think that's really interesting that the Panthers are drafting a quarterback in this position. Moving on to number 9, pretty obvious. Actually, not really obvious. I've seen a lot of mock drafts where they draft a corner here, and this is what Mel Kiper has them drafting in Patrick Surtain. But Justin Fields is still on the board. And I know people are like, yeah, Drew Lock hasn't had a lot of weapons. They've been hurt. Just give him more time. I mean, if Justin Fields is there, you better take him. I mean, for the longest time, it's been Trevor Lawrence 1, Justin Fields 2. I really don't think you can pass up on him. But they do. The Broncos at 9 ended up taking now the number 1 corner in the draft. I did have Farley ahead of him slightly, because he's just an athletic freak. But those back issues definitely are gonna push him back in the first round. But they do take Patrick Surtain from Alabama. Just a great press corner. Honestly, a lockdown corner for Alabama for many years. I think that's an easy pick, even though they did just sign Kyle Fuller, I believe. It's always good to have a good young corner on that defense if they are going to stick with Drew Lock for the future. You could see the Broncos honestly pushing to get maybe into that second spot in their division. I really think their team is really talented. They just had a bunch of injuries last year. People are going to develop. Obviously, Cortland Sutton comes back, but I think cornerback's a pretty decent option here. Now for the Cowboys, I did see Farley going in this spot, but apparently back issues are, especially for Mel Kiper's mock draft, are pushing people back. But they have J.C. Horn, and previously on a podcast, Richard Sherman ended up speaking on that J.C. Horn has the potential to be the best corner in the draft. He said he's like something like the best lockdown press man in the draft. He's a big corner. Pretty sure he's 6'1" or 6'2", J.C. Horn. That is South Carolina. He's just a really good corner. I mean, there's nothing more to really say. Very good lockdown corner. Dallas needs cornerback help, definitely. So, I'll be right back. There's a lot of noise again. Just hold that thought. J.C. Horn is a really good corner for the Cowboys as they really need that position. All right. For the next pick, Mel Kiper Jr. in his 4.0 mock draft has the Patriots. Now, I thought they were 15, but he has the Patriots trading up with the Giants, going from 11 to 15. Let that sink in for a second. Bill Belichick's making a move. Alright, so the Patriots trading up from 15 to 11, and they are going to take Justin Fields, according to Mel Kiper, in his mock draft. I mean, how can we let this happen? Bill Belichick, obviously the greatest coach of all time. I mean, you can say what you want, but he's done it all. A lot of good people are coming back on defense. They get their quarterback of the future. I maybe see Cam Newton potentially on the move, or maybe Justin Fields sitting behind Cam Newton for a couple games, or maybe the whole season, like Patrick Mahomes ended up doing. I think that's a great pick, and a great steal in the draft for the Patriots. So, pick number 12, Micah Parsons for the Eagles. That is, I guess, not surprising considering that all the wide receivers are taken up to this point, but they take best player available and Micah Parsons. I would assume they take a lineman, as Penei Sewell and Rashawn Slater are still on the board, and I do not see them sliding this far in the draft. But Micah Parsons, Penn State, ran 4.3 something. I mean, he's just an absolute beast. He slides a little bit in this draft because of off-the-field concerns, and maybe if this class wasn't so quarterback dependent in the first couple picks, that is, I could easily see top 4 picks going quarterback easily. But he slides a little bit to the Eagles. Very good pick for them. Off-ball linebacker, really good, really all-around player. He isn't really like the top 1% in any thing he does, but he's just, everything he does is just great, better than average. He does everything well. Really good fit. Now, where it gets interesting. How does Mel Kiper have Penei Sewell falling to 13 to the Chargers? That is insane to me. Penei Sewell, I mean, once in a generation tackle, an offensive line prospect from Oregon. He is 6'6" or 6'5", 330, 340-ish. Just an absolute beast. He's got the speed, he's got the strength, he's got the technique. I mean, what more can you ask for? Probably number 3 prospect in the draft or number 2, depending on who you ask. But I tell you what, Penei Sewell, God, he is just so good. I bet he compares to Anthony Munoz. He is a set in stone left guard, or not left guard, left tackle for 10 to 15 years easily. No one's taken his job. He is just really good. And that's all I can really say. Now, the Vikings. I think this would be a great steal for the Vikings in getting Rashawn Slater, as Mel Kiper has Rashawn Slater going to the Vikings. He can play all across the line for Northwestern. Pretty sure he's 6'5", 300 flat, really agile, great technique. Some people say that he has better technique than Penei Sewell. I don't know if I agree with that. But he's really, really set to be a day one starter for really any team. And I think the Vikings, they really need offensive line help tremendously on that left side, as we did lose Riley Reef. But we do have Ezra Cleveland, Brian O'Neill, and Garrett Bradbury, but we just need that left side of the line, especially that tackle position, to really improve. Offensive line, it's not a sexy pick. It's not a skill position, but it's a must-need position for the Vikings if we want to continue our success on offense and maybe even get better, as Kirk Cousins was sacked a lot last season. So, pick 15. This is interesting. The New York Giants now will end up trading with the Patriots, as we know, in this mock draft. Ends up taking J.O.K. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from Notre Dame, inside linebacker. Very interesting. I could see them potentially reaching for receiver help, even though they did get Kenny Galladay, or trading back. But Koramoah, he is really, really fast, can really fly around the defense, really good tackler. Pretty sure he's like low 6 feet, 220 pounds ish. He really flies around the defense. Great tackler, as I just mentioned. I think it's a great fit for the New York Giants. Although I think it's a little early. I think they could maybe go Kwity Paye, an edge rusher in this position, as they did lose one of their defensive linemen in Dalvin Tomlinson, who is now on the Vikings. There you go. Vikings have the only 2 Dalvins in the league, in Dalvin Cook and Dalvin Tomlinson, which is pretty cool. But I think JOK from Notre Dame's a great pick in this position. So, Mel Kiper for pick 16 has the Dolphins trading up to get a guard in Elijah Vera Tucker, AVT. I don't really see why they would do this. I get they could have taken Penei Sewell. They did get Devonta Smith. They do want to beef up that offensive line. I think AVT from USC, Elijah Vera Tucker, is the number 1 guard, interior offensive lineman in the draft. Slightly behind Wyatt Davis, but Wyatt Davis has an injury, and that's going to push him back a little bit. But he's going to be set in stone, day 1 starter for the Dolphins. I would assume they would have not traded, though. I feel like they could have drafted a running back here for Mel's mock draft 4.0. But Elijah Vera Tucker, forget about it. Set in stone, day 1 starter, great guard. Feel like he would have been in the top 10 if his arms would have been 2 inches longer, to be completely honest. He's that good for the interior. He did play a little bit tackle, but I think he He is definitely a guard at the next level. So, the Raiders, they got issues. Now, Mel Kiper has Trevon Moehrig, safety, pretty sure it's from TCU, going to the Raiders. Now, I think this is a great pick, or great player, per se. I do not see the Raiders necessarily picking a safety. They just lost 4 of their 5 offensive linemen that were starters. They need, absolutely need to address that. Chris, according to his mock draft, Christian Darrisaw still on board. I mean, who else is on board? Tevin Jenkins still on board. I feel like you gotta take one of those people, even though this draft is very deep for offensive linemen. I think taking the number 3 offensive line prospect, in my opinion, in Darrisaw, you just got to take that. But Trevon Moehrig is a good safety from TCU. Haven't watched a lot of tape on him, but I believe he's just an all-around great corner, or not corner, safety. I think he's a strong hitter. I've heard, I think, definitely #1 safety in the draft, and I don't think anyone comes close. Even the other TCU corner, not corner, safety. But yeah, I think taking offensive lineman should have been the move. Mel Kiper says no. Now pick 18, Caleb Farley finally comes off the board. Not Carolina. The Cardinals end up drafting him. His slide stops there. Yeah, he's a beast. I think the back issues are getting blown out of proportion a little bit, especially with the technology and all the medicine and all these weird things that just heal players, I guess. I think it's not going to be an issue. He was my #1 corner before this news came out. He's just an athletic freak. Great press corner. Man to man. I mean, he does it all. Cardinals are going to look scary. They do sign J.J. Watt, who's going to pair next to Chandler Jones, Isaiah Simmons on year 2. That defense is looking pretty good. Caleb Farley's going to replace Patrick Peterson, who's getting up there in age, who's on the Vikings now, who I think is going to provide tremendous leadership for our young secondary, who are probably has an average age of like 22, 23 out of all of them, even though Gladney's probably going to jail for all those, for the bad things that he did to his girlfriend, which is just unacceptable and just not cool at all. But yeah, Caleb Farley, great cornerback 1 for the future, most definitely. Now pick 19. All the quarterbacks are off the board for Washington, so they got to take, in my opinion, the 3rd best tackle in the draft, an offensive lineman, period. From Virginia Tech, I'm pretty sure Christian Darrisaw. It's got to be 6'5", 300 plus, set in stone left tackle or right tackle, depending on what they need. I think Sheriff is a guard, so one of the tackle positions will be great for Darrisaw. He's unlike Slater, he can't really move along the offensive line, as Slater can play. He can play basically any position on the line, guard, center, wherever you need him. Essentially, Darrisaw is fit for tackle. He's got great movement speed, great power. I think it's a great pick for the Washington football team. Now pick 20. The Bears, they're taking Kadarius Toney from Florida, wide receiver. Immediately impacts the kick return and punt return game, special teams, that is. Very fast. Don't know if he's ran a 40 yet, but I assume it's going to be low 4.3s or maybe even into the 4.2s like Jalen Waddle will evidently run, most likely. Put Kadarius Toney, you saw it with Kyle Trask and Kyle Pitts. They were lighting it up this year. Kyle Trask at one point was in the hunt for the Heisman because of all the yards he was racking up. Kadarius Toney definitely helped with that for most of the season, as Kyle Pitts was injured for parts of the season, so he was the only one out there. But I think Kadarius Toney is a great pick for the Bears. Kind of upset that he goes in the division. If you guys do know, I'm a Vikings fan, and that is not going to be fun to play with. or play against. But the Bears do not have a quarterback still, which is a great thing. Keep that like that forever. Now, pick number 21, Mel Kiper, has the Colts taking Kwity Paye. This draft, I'm now not now realizing, but as you can start to see, is very, very deep class. As you could probably imagine, Kwity Paye is a top 10 pick, or maybe top 8 pick in any other year. He is a great defensive end from Michigan. Pretty sure he's like 6'3", like 270. He's different from all the other edge rushers in the draft, essentially, or the top ones at least. I would consider him as a power rusher, instead of someone like a speed rusher, like Aziz Ojulari. Aziz, I can just say his first name, Aziz from Georgia, and people like Jason Owe from Penn State. But the Colts, over the offseason, ended up losing Justin Houston. I don't know if he retired or he's just not on the team anymore, but this is a great replacement. They get the number one edge in the draft, the most safest edge pick in the draft, in Kwity Paye. I think that's a great pick for them. Now, pick number 22, the Tennessee Titans take a cornerback, Greg Newsome the second. I don't know where he's from. I think he's from TCU. Let's look. Greg Newsome. I've heard really good things about him though. Greg Newsome the second. Where is he from? I think he's from TCU. I want to say. Let's see. No, he's from Northwestern. Same colors. But yeah, they take Greg Newsome the second from Northwestern. That is. They did lose. I'm pretty sure they did lose Adoree Jackson, and Malcolm Butler, a young corner and a veteran corner, Malcolm Butler. They need to replace that. They get that with Newsome. I think he's obviously a set in stone day one starter, especially in the first round. I haven't watched too much tape on him, but I hear he's a really good all-around corner. I think that's a really safe pick, and obviously a position of need. Now moving on to the Jets at 23, they draft their running back of the future, Travis Etienne, getting paired up with Zach Wilson. That's going to be a scary combo. I have Najee Harris a little above Travis Etienne, just because I haven't watched too much tape of Travis Etienne from Clemson. And what really sold me on Najee Harris was his pass catching ability. You saw at the his pro day. He was catching everything with ease. He seems to have very strong hands, Najee Harris does. But Travis Etienne, you can't really go wrong with either of the two. The Jets get their running back of the future. Great pick for them. Talking about Najee Harris, pick number 24, Mel Kiper Jr. has the Steelers getting their running back of the future, Najee Harris from Alabama. He is a beast. I don't know how tall he is. He's got to be 6'2", somewhere in there. He's got to be like 235, somewhere in there. He's a very good power back, but he's also very elusive and can be in the receiving game as well. I think that's a great pick. James Conner, I mean, he's got a 4.8 40. I mean, Mekhi Becton, who's like 6'7", 360, can probably run faster than him. He's just not the running back that they need, obviously. So I think Najee Harris comes in, obviously, day one starter. Great pickup for them. Now, pick number 25, Trevor Lawrence gets a tackle, his tackle of the future, in Tevin Jenkins from Oklahoma State. He is slowly but surely climbing up draft boards, and I think he's the fourth best tackle in the draft, which says a lot because there are really good tackles in the draft. I think any other draft he'd be number 2, essentially, or maybe move up a little bit. That is, but Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars, they need essentially every single position of need. They take a great tackle of the future in Tevin Jenkins. I think he can come in, start day one. Simple as that. Great pick for them. I'm gonna scroll down to the other part now, back half the draft. All right, so pick number 26, the Browns. The Cleveland Browns, selecting Mel Kiper has them selecting Gregory Rousseau. Um, I don't know about this pick. I feel like, well, there's two ways to look at it. You could look at Gregory Rousseau's tape from, God, what was it, 2019. He looks like an absolute monster. He's got to be 6'7", 265. His pro day was a little upsetting though. I felt like he could have done a lot better in most of those events. Um, but I don't know. I feel like it's not really a safe pick. I feel like if you wanted to test like the highest stealing, I feel like you'd draft Jason Owe from Penn State. He had a monster pro day, just an absolute beast. He's got to be 6'5", 260, ran a 4.3 something, which is probably the most impressive 40 I've ever seen. And honestly, I think it's more impressive than John Ross's 4.22 because John Ross is so light. To pick up that much speed at 6'5", 260, that is just unheard of. And I won't be surprised if it never happens again, to be completely honest. But he's a beast. But Gregory Rousseau, obviously get that length. Pair him up next to Myles Garrett. That's going to be a really good tag team for the years to come if Gregory Rousseau indeed pans out like his 2019 tape from Miami. Now pick number 27, the Ravens. We all know they need a receiver. They need a receiver. Marquise Brown isn't cutting it. I want to say Lamar Jackson's getting better at throwing. I'm not so sure yet. They need another receiver they do take in this position. Terrence Marshall Jr., a physical, very tall, big, physical receiver from LSU that played with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. I think he's going to add a lot of, obviously, depth and potentially take over that number one position for receiver. I want to say he's mid 6 feet-ish. He's got to be 6'3", 6'4", 6'5", somewhere around there. Just a big body receiver that can catch balls. I think it's a great pick for the Baltimore Ravens. Now moving on to pick number 28, the New Orleans Saints, taking a receiver as well. Elijah Moore, who lit up his pro day, running 4.3 something, benching a lot. I mean, his 3-cone, his shuttle, very impressive all around the board. The Saints did lose Emmanuel Sanders, I think in free agency, or he just didn't have a contract, or he's traded or something of that nature, but he's not on the team anymore. So I think drafting Elijah Moore from Ole Miss is a great pick for them. Don't know who they're going to start at quarterback. They have Jameis Winston, who should be better, sitting at 1 year behind Drew Brees. And also to add, he did get that eye surgery, which, I mean, say what you want, but he threw 30 picks without being able to see. I think Jameis Winston should be their quarterback of the future. I know they did pay Taysom Hill 4 years worth like $30 million a year that are all avoidable, which is really weird. Still don't really understand that from Sean Payton and his crew down there in New Orleans. But Elijah Moore, great pick, fast. Put him in the slot, let him take over with Jameis Winston. Now the Green Bay Packers, interesting. Mel Kiper has Jamin Davis, pretty sure from Kentucky. Let's see. I think he is from Kentucky, linebacker. Jamin Davis. He is from Kentucky indeed. He lit up his pro day. I actually want to see some of his results from the pro day. If I can see here. but he is a linebacker. He is 6 foot, basic. Let's call him 6'3", 235. From Kentucky, redshirt junior. I want to see some of his 40 time is 4.47, which is very, very good. Um, 3-star recruit from Georgia, 35-inch vertical. He tested really off the charts. He is a really consider him as a physical freak. The Green Bay Packers need help in that front seven. They let up so many rushing yards, especially in the playoffs. I forgot against which team, but they let up a lot of rushing yards, and they need someone who can crack down on the running back and really just stop that for yardage. I think Jamin Davis, although I think the Tulsa linebacker, Zaven Collins, would be a better fit for the Packers. I think you can't go wrong with Jamin Davis, who has been shooting up everyone's board, to be completely honest. Now the Bills. Mel Kiper has the Bills drafting Jalen Phillips. Now, I've heard many people talk about Jalen Phillips in his injuries, and that it's obviously a red flag for the draft in the first round. But I've also heard many videos and watched many videos of people saying that he could turn out to be the best edge rusher in the draft. And I've heard Todd McShay and Daniel Jeremiah over and over say that he has the fastest first step that they've seen since Von Miller, which I think really says something. So if he can stay healthy for the Bills, I feel like they only have Jerry Hughes. Their defensive line isn't getting any younger. Bringing in a young guy, I think would be a great position. They do miss out on running back, those top two running backs. I feel like they would have drafted a running back in this position, as I think Devin Singletary is not a true running back one, you could say. I think Jalen Phillips, in that good first step from Miami, is really good. Tested off really good at the pro day, ran like a 4.5 something. But the Chiefs at 31 draft Azeez Ojulari from Georgia, speed rusher. He is another physical freak like Jason Oweh, who I could definitely see going to one of these teams in the later back half of the first round, like the Chiefs. Frank Clark is getting paid around like $20 million a year. I don't think they're going to hold on to them or to him forever. But I would like to see them draft a tackle in this position. I know they get, I believe their center and one of their starting guards back, who was injured or opted out of COVID, and one of them actually went up to Canada to be a doctor for this pandemic. But I think they bring in Joe Thuney, guard. They bring in retired Kyle Long, put him at left tackle or right tackle. But I feel like they still do need a tackle. So I feel like Mayfield, potentially from Michigan, although he doesn't have a lot of snaps in college. He's at only like 500 total. I think that's a great position for him to develop and potentially be a top tackle in the league, or maybe a Pro Bowler eventually. It might be a little bit early for Alex Leatherwood, the tackle from pretty sure Alabama. But they do draft Azeez Ojulari. Yeah, day one starter, physical freak. Develop him, he'll turn into a monster. Now the Buccaneers, they re-signed all of their starters. All of their 22 starters are coming back. They don't necessarily need any position, to be completely honest. Their line is good. They got Marpay, they got Wirfs, they got Chris Godwin, they got Mike Evans, they got two receivers, one from the Gophers, and Tyler Johnson, and then Scotty Miller. They got playoff Lenny, Leonard Fournette. They still got Ronald Jones. They got Tom Brady. I mean, their secondary is young and up and coming with Winfield and Murphy Bunting. But Mel Kiper has them drafting Zaven Collins from Tulsa. I think this is a really safe pick. Um, Vontae David's getting older. They're not going to be able to pay him forever, obviously. I think getting a young linebacker is a great pick for them from Tulsa. You're pretty traditional old school linebacker. I'm not going to really relate him to Ray Lewis, but not the fastest, but just a really good tackler, uh, above average in coverage. I think it's a really safe pick for them. So that was Mel Kiper's mock draft. Very interesting. If I can go back to those previous picks, if the Chargers somehow get the best offensive lineman prospect since Anthony Munoz, I would say that is probably the biggest steal that I can think of, and I've been following football for a very long time. But if the Chargers somehow get Penei Sewell, they won't. Obviously, Penei Sewell, I feel like if he gets out of the top 6, that's going to be a very big shocker. But yeah, that's interesting. Very exciting for the Vikings. Mel Kiper has Rashawn Slater going there. I really like looking at all these mock drafts to see what the potential location that people can go. Really see all the different possibilities, so I'm not shocked when I do watch the NFL draft, which is I think April 29th. When is the NFL draft? NFL draft. It's coming up end of April. Very excited. April 29th, Thursday. Definitely going to watch that. Begins at 7 p.m. Great. Love to see it. But yeah, Mel Kiper, there's a lot of interesting things in this mock draft. Obviously, Penei Sewell going 13 of the Chargers. Patriots trading up to get Justin Fields at 11. He slides. Trey Lance taking a quarterback. Trey Lance going to the Panthers, even though they already have Sam Darnold. That is very interesting. Yeah, I think it's a very interesting mock draft. Thank you guys for listening to the podcast. Make sure to leave a like if you guys enjoyed it. Subscribe, because I will be posting more of these. I don't know how often, but I'm going to try to do 1 or 2 a week. Just count on that. I also do stream games on Twitch. I just got done streaming Red Dead Redemption. I also stream a little bit of Prop Hunt on Call of Duty, Black Ops, and then also Madden on there. So if you guys want to go watch that when I'm live, it's my Twitch username is Minnesotan99, all lowercase, no space. So yeah, I had fun with this, going through this mock draft. Very interesting. Caleb Farley slipped in the draft. Yeah, I really think that's a very interesting mock draft. But thank you guys who are listening and who will end up watching this later, other than the live stream. Really appreciate you guys. Take it easy, and I'll be streaming again soon, either on Twitch or YouTube. See you later.